Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and I wanted to address some new information that just recently came out about this unlicensed Chinese laboratory that was found in Reedley, California. This was a biolab that was not on the books and was experimenting with who knows what, and a lot of things were happening there that were very interesting for us here in the preparedness realm, because these are the sleeper cell type scenarios that we definitely discuss on a regular basis when it comes to some type of foreign adversary establishing points of aggression here within the United States. Now, this happened in Reedley, California, which is in Fresno County, which is in the center valley of the state. And if you've never been to Fresno, you're likely to see somebody doing karate at a gas station. So just keep that in mind. But this was an interesting situation because no one would have really found out about it had code enforcement not noticed that a garden hose was going outside of a brick building, which it wasn't supposed to be there, and it wasn't supposed to be occupied for anything other than storage. And then one thing led to another, which led to a search warrant, which now led to all the information that we currently have. And a big question about this whole situation is, are there more of these in the US? Are there more of these unlicensed, unrecognized biolabs that are experimenting on relatively dangerous biological agents throughout the country? And at this biolab, they actually found traces of E. coli, malaria, herpes, chlamydia, all types of different biological agents, even though the lab's main purpose was supposedly to create COVID-19 tests and pregnancy tests. Now, this company was called Prestige Biotech, and Prestige Biotech was registered as a corporation in 2019, not too far off from when the COVID-19 pandemic began. And it was registered in Nevada, and yet this unlicensed operation was happening in California. So for one point of detail, you can understand that at the minimum, we have two different states involved. Whether or not there are locations in Nevada or only in California is a different conversation that we don't necessarily have the information surrounding yet. But we do know that we have at least cross-state interests when it comes to this particular entity. Now, Prestige Biotech was also involved with some of the COVID-19 tests that were recalled, and were recalled, I believe, in the sense of being like a class 1 recall by the CDC, saying that these tests were actually inherently dangerous and could actually lead to serious injury or even death. So that's a big deal because this is the company that has the shady lab in the middle of California messing with bioengineered who knows what, putting out these tests that are actually hurting people. So first off, the timing's weird. Second off, we know that this is an interstate at the very least issue. And third off, what should we really be looking at when it comes to this type of scenario? Is there the possibility of this being some kind of super secret bioweapon laboratory that they're going to unleash the next big pandemic from in order to try to destabilize the United States even further? Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. But I think more than likely, the thing that I would be looking at right now is the money, right? How does the money add up? How does this all work when it comes to profitability? And you have to understand that the pandemic was extremely profitable for certain groups of people. And with the Chinese working in tandem with the Mexican drug cartels, I would assume that we're going to have more evidence of these types of labs likely all over the country. And a big part of what they're trying to accomplish is profitability. And when you think about the profitable aspect of what we've seen throughout the COVID-19 pandemic is how some of these pharmaceutical companies were able to generate massive profits. And some of these interestingly young Chinese companies that look to have appeared overnight that received millions all the way upwards to billions of dollars in funding from taxpayer money in order to supply masks and tests and gloves and equipment of all kinds, it reminds you of just how much money there was to be made. And if you think that nefarious actors like the drug cartels aren't willing to try to increase their income stream by using things like pandemics to their advantage, then you don't fully understand their business model, because they're definitely not just worried about selling drugs. They're willing to make money in any capacity where they can make it, and especially regarding something that you can personally induce. If you can create some type of bioweapon that you have the solution for, or at the minimum, maybe just the testing kits for, then you can be very profitable by supplying said solution once the problem exists. And a lot of people have this kind of speculation about COVID-19 in general. But I think what we're seeing here with this unlicensed laboratory, with a lot of interesting things going on surrounding this company, Prestige Biotech, I think we can assume that we might see more nefarious behavior revolving around these types of entities in the future. And in my personal opinion, I would assume that they're all over the country. I'm not going to just say this is a one-off. Not with the level of funding that they have access to via the Chinese government as well as the Mexican drug cartels, and not with the reasonings for why it would be a good idea for them to operate these types of facilities. You either have your sleeper cell possibly being able to be activated at any moment in time based on having biological weapons at their disposal, or you have your profitability, income generating facility ready to go during the next pandemic or during the pandemic that you somehow created or at least distributed. So, this is why we need to be preparing for things to be not just natural disasters. I don't know what else to say at this point. If you haven't figured out what's going on in the world related to the United States and our foreign adversaries, they're not as cut and dry as what we're seeing over in Eastern Europe. What's happening over there is pretty straightforward. You have two adversaries. One is an invading force and the other one is a defending. And then everything else related to it regarding politics is a different story. But we know exactly who's who in many ways regarding that type of conflict. But here, with what's going on with China, with unlicensed laboratories, with biological components that are extremely dangerous and easily infectious being worked on and experimented with at these facilities, it just tells you that it's one more piece of the puzzle. It's one more step towards this inevitable conflict that we're going to find ourselves in. And we also have to question, maybe what the biggest question should be, is who is complicit? Who's involved? How are some of these things able to exist without anyone knowing about it? Or are they being allowed to exist and operate based on certain figures that might have connections that would allow them to exist? I don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty safe to assume that at this point, but that's something that we need to definitely discuss. So, look, the channel's biggest supporter is Midway USA, and they help me get prepared in many, many ways. But when it comes to dealing with foreign adversaries here on US soil, they definitely have some of the things that I find to be a priority when it comes to protecting ourselves and maintaining our freedom. So big thanks to Midway USA for providing that to people like us, and at the same time, supporting the channel. But I don't foresee anything that China's going to do to be overt. Everything they're doing is subversion or done covertly, because that's how you accomplish more at this point in time with this interconnected globalist system that has been established using the internet. It's not very efficient for them to come land a bunch of ships on the coast of California and see what they can do and eventually find out that they aren't going to win that war. So it's much more efficient to establish an unlicensed laboratory working on who knows what, being capable of who knows what, without anyone really noticing for years. Like I said, this LLC or corporation or whatever it was established in 2019 in Nevada. And at least from my understanding, this facility has been running minimum since October of 2022. And who knows what has been done since then and what they've accomplished since then. But this is the point in time that we're at, where everything is a little spicier than what we like to admit. And there is some good reporting that's going on around this whole situation. So I'll link that below in the description as well as in the pinned comment, so you can actually see where we're at on the actual paperwork that's come out from the government regarding the warrants and everything else related to this particular facility, and the questions that the journalists are asking that they want to have answered regarding anyone else's involvement, California's awareness of this facility, what else it was they were possibly working on, and most importantly, are there more of them in the country? Because I mean, I don't necessarily need someone to tell me that. I'm just going to assume that there are, because that's how we prepare for things, right? Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Well, that's this situation right here. So keep it in mind, keep an eye on it, and really think hard about the motivations for these types of facilities. It's not always about creating some kind of doomsday weapon like in that Quarantine movie with some weird guy working on rabies in the attic, right? Sometimes it's about how to make the most money possible in an illegal way. When you're affiliated with criminal organizations, you got to think more criminally. And when criminal organizations are happiest, it's when they're profitable. Something to consider, and something that I think that we should expect more of. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you need anything else from me, you know what to do. Go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper.